What's up, guys? Before we get into the video, I want to let everyone know that I finally have merch on the web store. I've got a bunch of shirts and different designs now live on ludwicksgarage.com. The link is in the video's description below. It's just what I had left over from the show, so there's not a lot in each size, so go there now and grab some Ludwick's Garage merch for yourself. What is up, guys? Welcome back. I'm back in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the shop. We just made the long haul back, ultimately from St. John, New Brunswick, Canada, from the Complex Union Show roll call. But we spent the last week in New Hampshire at my parents' place, working on the bus and buying the Bounder motorhome for the drivetrain under the bus. But you also just saw in the last episode that we got the bus running with the 1946 running gear in it, and we were able to drive it, which is just so crazy. But now we're back in Chattanooga and we're getting back to it. The truck did unbelievable. I can't sing the truck's praises enough. We lost the blower motor. We had to recharge the AC system. But for a 1995 7.3 OBS with 276,000 miles on it, this thing just killed it. So I still have yet to wash it, but we got it unloaded, got the trailer pressure washed, got that cleaned up, unhooked, and we're right to work on the laser machine. Spent most of the day yesterday doing yard work since I had to mow and weed whack this whole place since it had just gotten overgrown while I was gone. And it's a lot to do. And the second I got done, we got hit with a thunderstorm with a lot of wind. This whole tree came down. 2/3 of this one came down. These are all Bradford pears, so they're just brittle as twigs. Literally, I just got done mowing all of this. We got another half of this one fell down, and it's leaning on this one, so who knows if this one's ready to go yet. And then we had a big limb come off of this tree here on this side, luckily not on the power lines. I came out here with the chainsaw and at least cut this one up. Started getting all the brush kind of put together. I limbed one of these, got that all set aside. I rent this shop from my friend Andy, so luckily it's not, all on me to get all this stuff cleaned up, but I don't know, being the worker that I am, it's like it was hard to not be out here with the chainsaw all evening. We have so much work to get back to, both with some jobs I have to finish on the laser machine, but also the auto union. We're right back into this thing, because as you know, I took that to Complex Union unfinished, so we still have a laundry list of stuff to do on that car. So I'm still trying to get unpacked, tons of stuff to put away yet, but I got the auto union inside, all wiped down, because we hauled this thing in the rain, so it got disgusting from just road grime, so I wiped everything down, got it clean. So where I left off before leaving for Canada on the 1000 SP was we were going to start making floor extensions to basically go from our new frame rails to the Beetle pan. Now, obviously you can see that the Beetle pan is far narrower than the body of the 1000 SP. I saw a lot of your comments back when I first started putting this car together. I know that a Karmann Ghia pan is more square, which means from this point right here, it doesn't angle in, it stays more straight ahead, which would be more symmetrical to the body, obviously. But Karmann Ghia pans were more expensive than Type 1 pans, from what I remember. And honestly, with having to make floor extensions anyway, it's really not that big of a deal to just go a little bit farther up here. So I knew that when I bought these pans, because the original floors on this 59 Beetle pan were just completely rotted out. And also, you may notice, the drive to Canada was not without some rain. And I thought about that before I left. The forecast looked clear, but we hit some rain while in New Hampshire for the week there before we came down here, and I did not have time to paint all of my tube work, all the chassis and all that. So we have a fair amount of surface rust that I've got to wire wheel off, which is a nuisance, but it's okay. Before leaving for Canada, I went to the local steel yard and got some steel. Got some 18 gauge steel here, got a good sheet of it. I got the length that I need to stretch all the way down from basically where the firewall in the front to the firewall in the rear will be. This one I got a good deal on. It's got a little bit of a kink in it, but I can hammer this out. I do have to get up into the top here. I'd like to make them boltable here. Since I've got to go over the top of my frame rail here, they will ultimately come up with the body whenever it needs to be separated from the pan. So if it was secured here and bolted here, because it's on top of the frame rail, we wouldn't be able to pull the body up because the floor extension would be holding it. All right, so playing a bit of arts and crafts, cutting a piece of cardboard to act as a template before we go to steel, using an angle finder now to get the angle where the footwell angles in. So let's see how this fits. So this will butt back here. We'll ultimately have a firewall here that'll come down, and I'll probably utilize these body mounts that are threaded up and over the outriggers of the floor pan here for a vertical wall. Have like an ear on them and be able to bolt it in and maybe go straight in here, and then we'll ultimately make a floor kind of like this, but the management won't be this far forward, it'll be back farther. But anyway, the plan is to have something straight down here. So I'm gonna bring this out farther than I really need to so I can always trim it later. And up here, that'll work. That's about a 44-degree angle, and that looks like that'll do just fine. All right, I think we're pretty close on the template, at least close enough to cut it out of steel. Well, that looks pretty good right along the edge here. I've pulled it away from my welds a little bit because if I butt it in, there's too much space on the actual floor pan lip. And since we're going to be fastening this side, I want to have as much surface area possible on that pan floor lip there. So this will give me enough space here to stitch weld this all the way down, and we're butted up pretty nicely all the way up. So what I'll do next is I'll get the sheet metal down and we'll transcribe this cardboard template onto the metal, and yeah, we'll start cutting. So one other thing I want to check with is to make sure I can mirror this onto the driver's side. So let's try it on this side, and we'll flip it over like so. And we'll see just how symmetrical I made this car. Put this back here. Oh yeah, that'll work. I've got enough lip right here to stitch weld along the edge of the sill and my frame rail welds, while butting it against the contour of the floor lip. Perfect. All right, well, I can use this one cardboard template for both sides, so I don't need to make a second cardboard template. That's always a nice feeling because it shows that I was somewhat symmetrical with building this car, which is a relief because I don't consider myself a professional. I'm a hobbyist. I learn something new every day in here. All right, well, I got the sheet of 18 gauge steel down on the floor on some 2x4s. I don't have a really good big welding table in here. I just have a small one over in the corner. So my benchtop workspace is pretty limited here. But basically, you can see how rough and warped and bent this end was, right? So this basically went all the way down. But I just rudimentally spent some time with some 2x4 blocks and some hammers flattening this out, because I ultimately need about 18 inches of the length I have here. So we went from this down to this. So it's not perfect. I'm not a metal shaper by any means, but I do know metal can shrink and stretch. So this here was basically that. There were 2 of those, and that was 1. So we got them flat enough for what we're gonna do. I don't have a bead roller here in the shop yet. I really wish I did, because where it's the widest, it'd be cool to put like a little bit of a bead roll in there for design. It doesn't need to be bead rolled for strength, because there's not a lot of span that it's going to cover, where bead rolling it would give it more strength. It's ultimately just spanning the width up here, and you'll never stand there. We're gonna dive into that stuff at some point in the channel, because I really want to dive into metal shaping. It's something I haven't had the time or the patience for yet, nor has it really been crucial on some of my projects. And I just realized yesterday I don't have a good set of metal shears. Now I know that Makita makes a great handheld metal shear. I've seen a lot of friends and people that I just watch online use them, and they rave about them, but I can't find them anywhere locally. You have to order them. And so for the time being, for the sake of getting these cut, we made the old run to Harbor Freight and picked up a few things that I wanted duplicates of, or just some consumables. But we got the $60 Bauer electric metal shear. This will cut up to 18 gauge. Oh, we're gonna cut up to 14 gauge, which is good because we're cutting 18 gauge, which is thinner. So we're gonna see how these go. This isn't a review video by any means, but we will see out of the box how good the $60 Harbor Freight Bauer electric metal shears are. All right, well, it didn't do a terrible job. I don't work with enough metal shears to really be able to compare it to something else. It was a little hard to get it angled right, to cut through somewhat smoothly. But as I went, I kind of figured it out as to how it wanted to cut through this. Let's see how it fits. Boy, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Well, I think we can work with that. All right, so I have tack welded one side in. Actually, I tack welded both sides in, but removed one. So what I've done is I put a couple tack welds in here and here to hold it, and then I drilled my holes where it'll bolt to the Beetle pan. That way these can be unbolted. It'll be welded to the body, so if the body ever comes up, this part of the floor will come up with the body and not be hard mounting the body to the pan. So basically I'm trying to keep this a two-piece car. That way if the body of the auto union has to ever come off the pan, it can. I've never had to take the BMW 700 body off of the Beetle pan that it's sitting on. But that too, when my father and I built it, we kind of had that in mind is, just in case this body has to come off, let's not weld it together. Everything's bolted. Even the wiring harness from the body to the Beetle pan has a disconnect where you can just unplug it in one spot and the body can come up. So that's the overall game plan with this car. I tack welded the passenger side in first, but I've cut that out because I forgot I wanted to paint the top of my 2x2 inch box frame rail. Now that we're gonna set this down over the top of it, I wanted to make sure I painted it so it doesn't ultimately rust where those two pieces of metal would sandwich. So what I did was I put some painter's tape down along the edge where I will stitch weld the floor, because then I can repaint that once the floor is on, but I won't be able to get underneath where it's gonna overlay the box frame. All right, next morning, almost depleting my bolts and nuts little bin. Thanks, Gary. Ran to the hardware store to get some hardware. Gotta get connected with bolts and nuts because I could definitely do with a larger bin here in the shop. But we got some hardware. After I drilled all my holes, not sure if a hex head bolt is what I'm ultimately gonna stick with, but for now that'll get us bolted in and we can move on to other aspects of the car. We're not done taking the body off the pan yet, so we're not gonna go through any sealing processes yet, but that'll obviously come at the end. Well, those are the floor extensions welded in and bolted down. I didn't film all of the installation. They are strong, like you're never gonna like put all of your weight right on that, especially with a seat right there. You'll end up like stepping in here and sitting in the seat, so we might end up having a bracket that gets mounted there or something, but more than likely not. I'm gonna do my best to make sure we mount to the Beetle pan itself, because that's where the seat rails used to be. We'll seal everything up once we're ready to drive. For now, that's gonna do it for this episode. Just one thing checked off the list, but a big thing to check off the list. So thank you guys so much for all of your support. We'll see you in the next episode.